Hello, and welcome to the Student Learning Commons workshop on peer reviews. My name is Mackenzie, and I'll be leading this workshop for you today. Before we get started, however, I would like to acknowledge that I work, live, and play on the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam peoples, and the Student Learning Commons also operates on these ancestral lands. As you know, our topic for today is peer reviews, so we will start by addressing some myths and truths of the peer review process. Here, I hope to address some of the things you may have heard or come to believe about peer reviews with the goal of clarifying your understanding of this process. Next, we will discuss goal setting while conducting a peer review. What are you hoping to get out of this process, and what can you do to accomplish this? Finally, we will discuss the peer review process, including the qualities of an effective peer review, how the writing and peer review processes are related, and how to offer valuable feedback to your peers. So, let's start with some true or false statements. I will read these statements to you one by one, taking a brief pause after each. What I want you to do is think about whether each statement is true or false and why you think that. The first statement is, it's better if a peer reviewer doesn't understand the assignment requirements. That way, the feedback is more objective. Is the statement true or false, and why? The second statement is, for a draft, it's usually better to give feedback on purpose, organization, and paragraph development than on sentence structure and style. Is this true or false? Why do you think that? The third statement is, a peer reviewer should fix as many errors as possible. Is this true or false, and why? The fourth statement is, asking questions is an effective form of peer feedback. Is this true or false, and why? The fifth statement is, a peer's role is that of a thoughtful reader, not a judge. Is this statement true or false? Why do you think that? And the final statement is, to be most helpful as a peer reviewer, you need to know grammar. Is this true or false? Why? Hopefully, you were able to determine if these statements were true or false, but if not, that's totally okay too. We will explore these topics in more detail in the following slides, so if you're unsure whether some of these statements are true or false, you'll hopefully know within the next 15 minutes. Now, let's do a bit of a warm-up. So take a moment to pause the video and read the text below, and as you do so, ask yourself the following questions. What would you comment on first and why? So here, it may be helpful to determine what is most important to revise first and what is less important in the early stages of a peer review. Additionally, think about how you would feel while receiving this feedback. Keep in mind that this is likely how your peer will feel when reading your review of their work. So this is something that's really important to keep in mind while you provide feedback. You can pause the video to answer these questions now. By now, you should have explored these questions and be back with me. I hope you found the process helpful. We'll now move on to the next slide. Now we are going to explore some myths about peer reviews. The first myth is that to be a useful peer reviewer, you must be a grammar expert. This is not true, and this stems from thinking about peer review as being the same as copy editing, but it isn't. Peer review on early drafts actually should not focus on grammar. Take a moment to think to yourself why this may be the case. The reason peer reviews on early drafts should not focus on grammar is because these peer reviews should instead focus on what are called first or higher order concerns. Some first order concerns that are preferably focused on during peer reviews are purpose, claim and evidence, audience, structure, and format. Our second myth states that peer review is a waste of time because only the grade and instructor's comments matter. This is also not true. And in fact, if your grades matter to you, then peer review is an excellent opportunity to learn about what is working and is not working in your draft and to make some revisions before you submit your assignment for a grade. Your instructor's comments generally come too late for you to do anything about them, at least for the particular submission, although you can apply that to later work. However, early peer review can improve the quality of your work and reduce the need for later revisions. In the big picture, being too dependent on just one reader's perspective can really limit your ability to write for multiple audiences. Therefore, it's good to seek out and consider feedback from many different readers to understand the impact of your writing and to think about where you can refine your draft or style. Getting feedback from different reviewers is also a great way to get different perspectives on your draft. Our third and final myth is that peer reviewing may not be a waste of time, but you can't trust most of your classmates because only certain people can provide you with useful feedback. It is true that sharing your writing with others can be nerve-wracking and can often make the writer feel vulnerable. However, when done well, you can get really valuable insights from any and all of your peers. Remember, peer reviewers aren't supposed to correct or fix your draft. Instead, their role is to respond to what they're reading and help you see your own draft through different eyes. The focus of peer reviewers should be on supporting the writer to think about their choices and to put their best possible draft forward. Having peer reviewers offer the writer different perspectives on a piece of writing is one great way to accomplish this. Now that we've dealt with some of the myths surrounding peer reviews, let's get a better idea of what you should and should not do in order to engage in effective peer reviewing. First, it's very important that you, as a reviewer, know the assignment requirements and aren't making assumptions about what the requirements may be, as doing so could mislead the author. Second, reviewers should try to read the piece of writing as objectively as they can rather than judging, evaluating, or trying to second-guess the grade. Don't think about what grade the assignment will receive, but rather focus on how the draft could be improved as a unified piece of writing. Third, don't be too critical or too enthusiastic, but rather try to be honest in a kind and supporting way. For example, rather than saying, "This is awful," try saying something like, "It seems like you're trying to say this here, but I, as your reader, am having a difficult time understanding this. I'm wondering if there is a more effective way you could phrase this so that I can understand your meaning a bit more deeply." Fourth, don't try to fix the document, but rather try to offer questions or prompts that get the reader thinking about how to improve their paper themselves. Keep in mind that peer reviewers are not supposed to be experts, but rather serve to look over the paper with a new set of eyes. Fifth, don't focus on grammar or mechanics first, but instead attend to higher order concerns. For example, if I notice that the draft doesn't have a thesis statement, this would be more important to address than a spelling error. Sixth, and finally, try to learn more about how to recognize second-order concerns yourself instead of relying on someone else or a grammar checker to spot these for you. Take a moment to look through this graphic outlining the writing process. You can pause the video now if you need more time to do so. Notice that peer review is an important part of the process of writing. It is important to get someone else's perspective on your writing and learn from them about what is working and what still needs work. Based on the feedback you receive, you can do revisions of your work if needed. Revising is the opportunity to ensure that your ideas are expressed as clearly as possible, your structure is working, and your writing is meeting the goals it needs to meet for the assignment guidelines. Revision is where you focus on first or higher order concerns. In many cases, these are the types of concerns that peer reviewers should focus on. You can then move on to editing and proofreading, which is the stage at which you will address your lower order concerns, such as grammar, punctuation, and spelling. Here, you can see some examples of higher or first order concerns. Notice that these are generally broader reaching concerns rather than lower order concerns that can often be isolated to specific areas. For example, Organization refers to how your entire paper is organized and structured, whereas a lower order concern like grammar may only appear in one sentence. Because higher order concerns often impact your paper in its entirety, they are most important to address first. When peer reviewing, it's important that you use prompts to help the author address concerns themselves rather than editing or rewriting the draft yourself. Focusing too much on lower order concerns can result in marking up the other person's paper too extensively, sometimes to the point that they feel their own work has been rewritten. If you notice a pattern of error in someone else's writing and you feel that you can flag it for them and even explain what is happening, for example, if there's a subject-verb agreement issue, then that's great. But there's no need to circle or rewrite every single subject-verb agreement error in the piece. Your role as the peer reviewer is to help the other person learn about their own writing and make their own edits, not to rewrite their work for them. If you have favorite resources that you like to use for learning about writing or grammar, or for editing your own work, sharing those also can be a very generous and helpful form of peer reviewer support. Before submitting a draft for peer review, you may want to set goals that you wish to accomplish through the peer review process. To do so, you will want to start by looking at your own draft and coming up with a few different things you would like feedback on. Ideally, these will be higher order concerns. Then, you can write questions about these areas for your peer reviewer to ensure that you receive feedback on the areas that you are concerned with. This is a great way to direct the attention of the reviewer to specific areas that you are concerned or struggling with so that you can receive feedback on such matters. For example, if I was concerned about the clarity of my thesis statement, I could ask the peer reviewer to identify my thesis statement and tell me what I'm trying to argue in this piece. If they come back to me and identify my thesis statement correctly and say it's clear, then great. If they come back and say they couldn't identify my thesis statement, or they identified an incorrect thesis statement, then I know that's an area I'm going to want to focus on, and hopefully the peer reviewer will have provided me with some feedback on how to fix this. Now, this marks the end of the workshop for today, but that doesn't mean the Student Learning Commons can't still support you. At the SLC, we offer all sorts of services, and you're paying for these in your tuition, so you might as well take advantage of them. We can help you with every part of your paper, from planning and outlining to writing the thesis statement, to integrating sources, to revision and proofreading. And trust me, we love doing it. So with that, I will leave you. Thank you once again for viewing this workshop, and we hope to see you at the SLC soon.